Welcome to Moments with Marianne. Allow me to interrupt your train of thought with something that may be one of the most interesting things you hear today. This is Marianne-pestana, and our special guest today is Dr. Mark Mincolla. And he's here today to share with us his new book and film titled The Way of Miracles. Now, many of you know Dr. Mincolla. He's a nutritional therapist and quantum energy healer who has transformed the lives of more than 60,000 patients over the last 35 years. Through his innovative genius, he has integrated ancient Chinese energy healing techniques with cutting-edge nutritional science in what he calls electromagnetic muscle testing, which is a one-of-a-kind approach that zeroes in on each individual's unique nutritional needs. Dr. Mincolla was just awarded the 2021 Divine Contribution to Humanity Award, and his movie was awarded the Best Health Awareness Film of 2021. Dr. Mincolla has authored 7 international best-selling books to date, and he's appeared on Dr. Oz, Better TV, and numerous national TV, radio, and magazines. So let's welcome to the show, Dr. Mincolla.
Marianne, thanks for having me here. It's great to be with you.
You know, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this groundbreaking book. I have to ask you, what inspired you to write this?
Well, over the past 37 years, I've counseled 60,000 people at a holistic level, working with their body, mind, and spirit, helping people to balance their chemistry and balance their energy and balance their person in ways that actually help them to improve their well-being, their health, their optimism, their positivity, their frame of mind, et cetera, et cetera. So healing is a beautiful undertaking that I've been fortunate enough to be involved with for 37 years. And I've loved every minute of it. But I think I've written 7 books altogether. And it was time for me to write a book that was a groundbreaker, a real significant book that worked in the area of super consciousness, higher level of awareness, to really cut to the chase in terms of health and healing being evaluated at a spiritual level, a deep spiritual level. So this is my first time to do such a thing. I've written books on nutrition, written books on the mind and the ability of the mind to be positive and to focus its attention on health and healing and creating health and healing through concentration and thoughts and word usage and things like that. And it was time for me to really take a dive into the world of spirituality and to really work that into the experience so I could help people from a deeper perspective. And I think the book does that. And the film does that as well. We have a movie that's actually called The Way of Miracles as well. They're beautiful expressions of tapping into the higher level of consciousness and bringing about tremendous transformational healing. That's kind of how I got started.
Well, my goodness, we're so glad that you did. What a great book and film this is. I have to say, I was so impressed with it. Such a great piece of just work in itself. It's going to help so many people. As I'm looking at your work and kind of considering this, it seems that you approach it in a completely different way, where kind of modern medicine maybe leaves off, where they kind of look at the symptoms instead of the whole person and what's going on with them to heal them.
Well, you're exactly right, man. It's a huge point. And I think that is all about tapping into the root, what I call the root. So to me, illness, disease, if you will, it's systemic. It's a system. People tend to think of healing as a system, which it is. Of course it is. But the perfect system isn't healing. It's actually disease, because it's a priori. It's nature saying, if this happens, then this is going to follow. And it's a natural process. Obviously, if you eat something like high in caffeine, you're not going to sleep well. So I think there's the a priori of nature, so to speak, that says if you want to be healthy and well, you live in balance. You learn how to deal with your life in a balanced way in terms of things you eat, things you think, the properties you engage and embrace, spiritual levels, emotional levels, etc. So it's about finding that balance. And I think that the book and the film are representative of the work that I do, that you, as you mentioned, that tap into the root. Because if you have somebody who has 25 things going on in their body, which is not unusual, they could have so many different symptoms correlated with so many different problems. But if you tap into the fact that there's one major root that kind of anchors everything else, it helps you to radically undo the problems and the disease factors. So I think the root is important. Again, as you point out, Western medicine, they look at the symptoms, they put you on certain things to just make the symptoms better. But my contention is, what I've proven over the years, my work that I've done, if you tap into the root, correct the root, balance it, the whole body gets better, the whole mind gets better, the spirit gets better, et cetera.
Yeah, you're really addressing the person as a whole. And my goodness, what a dramatic change that would be to not be on 25 different medications, but really addressing the core problem and getting to that. And I can understand why you talk about, part of your work is creating miracles, because for a lot of people, that would be a miracle.
Well, as the movie indicates, there's seven stories in our film, The Way of Miracles. And there's one woman that has a 4-centimeter tumor in her brain. She had the tumor surgically removed the first time. And then the tumor grew back 2 months later. So they asked her if she wanted a second surgery. And she just said, I couldn't go through brain surgery again. She's only 37, 38 years old, young woman. She said, I just can't go through that kind of surgery again. That once is more than enough. It takes too much out of me. I can't do it. I'm going to have to find an alternative approach to getting rid of this tumor. So she contacted me, and I worked with her for 5 months. And after 5 months, the tumor vanished. I put on a number of different supplements, strict diet, worked very hard with natural medicine, things like pawpaw, things like ellagic acid, things like black cumin seed oil, very powerful agents that have been studied by Western medicine extensively for their anti-cancer properties. So we put on these natural products, put on a diet. 5 months, the tumor completely shrunk, went away, 100%.
Wow. That is amazing.
She's been tumor-free for 9 years. That's an example. That's one example that we mentioned in the film. That's representative of tens of thousands of people. I mean, we have a miracle every day in some form or other. We have tens of thousands of people, and so many of them are going through radical shifting and changing because they're taking better care of themselves. The astounding fact here is this, Marianne. People don't generally take care of themselves. They really don't. They think they do, but they don't. You really appreciate the potential of food to be a problem or a healing agent. You got to be really cautious and really careful and really dedicated to your use of healthy, vibrant foods. And I think if you work at that part of the equation, like most people don't, the door is open to making radical differences in a positive way.
Wow. That just makes such a big difference. And I applaud you with your work. I mean, you've done so much for humanity. And I know recently you were awarded a distinction for helping the consciousness of humanity, which I'm not surprised by. It's rightfully deserved. One of the interesting things, I understand we're not going to go over this too much because we understand it's part of the book and we don't want to really get into it deep, but you use your own techniques that you developed to heal yourself, right?
Sure. The system that I employ is a system that I developed over the years. It's actually a comprehensive system of energy medicine, nutrition included, supplements, et cetera. But we're using bioenergetic muscle testing to tap into the organ systems, the glandular systems, the strengths and weaknesses. We measure them from 1 to 10. So we measure the energy of the liver, the kidneys, the gallbladder, the spleen, the lungs, et cetera, et cetera. So measuring all the visceral areas of the body for their strength energetically between 1 and 10. So I would say let's measure between 1 and 10, positive and minus. So you can't do better than a plus 10. You can't do worse than a minus 10. It's figuring out the strengths and weaknesses of your body. So it helps you tap into that root, that core that we talked about earlier. And we check foods as well. Check wheat, dairy, egg yolks, all the foods, spinach, green beans, every fruit, every vegetable, every protein, every bean, every legume. We check everything. And we get readings from our energetic properties from the process that we put together for our system. The system is called the EMT system. I wrote about it extensively in my 6th book. My 6th book is entitled Whole Health. Sorry, that's my 5th book. My 6th book is the Whole Health Diet. So book number 5 is Whole Health. Book number 6 is the Whole Health Diet. We do extensive teaching in those books about how to implement the system. My goal is to have America, the world, not just America, the whole world, using my system, the way I just describe it and define it and teach it in my books. And they can actually engage their own family, their loved ones, their friends, and energetic healing, energetic diagnostics, energetic nutrition, energetic supplementation. So using our energy systems to diagnose, to tap in, and to make recommendations, it can make a big difference in so many people's lives. Because I don't want to just be the one person doing this all day long in a room, just having the whole world show up my doorstep. Not that I mind doing that. It's wonderful to be able to do it. But beyond that, I want the world to learn and practice and engage and heal itself. And that's what my goal is. That's why I wrote these books.
That's definitely a very empowering approach. And I know a lot of people are out there looking for ways to empower themselves, especially now.
I mean, you're right. It's always been that way, but I think it's more that way now because of all that the world's been through, no question.
So what if somebody says, you know what, I don't believe in miracles and I'm not lucky. Can the way of miracles still work for them?
Yes, the way of miracles begins with the premise that miracles are not elusive. They're not impossible. There's four aspects to our, I always say there's four relationships we have with miracles. Number one, the idea of rejecting. There's no such thing as a miracle. That's number one. The doubt, the rejection. Rejection is number one. Reject miracles. Number two, accept miracles. So you gone past rejection. You're in the realm of saying, I guess I can accept the fact that somebody's had a miracle. And I know some people have had them, but not me. So there's reject, there's accept. Number three, expect. So now we're thinking in terms of, I'm thinking more positive. Other people have had miracles. I want my miracle. I expect something to happen. And the most important one, number four, create miracles. So you got to roll up your sleeves, engage your own volition, your own energy, your own determination, your own manifest, and create the miracles that you so need, and that the world around you needs as well. So there's reject, accept, expect, and create. Those are the keys. Those are really important factors to understand. And I think that the average person can evolve through those phases and end up in a place they're confident that they create miracles simply by trying to improving themselves, that they're capable of doing more than they think. I think that's the key. So if you get past rejection, work your way up to the expectation of creating the miracle, being involved, becoming determined, becoming manifest, empowered, that you're working at it. You're determined that if you come from a higher self, like a superconscious self, your soul, your source, you're really deep down in the core level of your being, and you're actually emphasizing the manifest, the potential to make this happen. You're determined to make it happen. Nothing can stop you. I think that's when you start making remarkable miracles. And the key is this. It's not that there aren't miracles. There are miracles, but they don't exist in the mundane level. So if you're operating out of your ego and your personality, you're not in the zone where miracles exist. If you go to your soul and your source, your higher levels, your deeper self, you meditate, you do yoga, you just tap into your higher core self, you become familiar with your core self, your source. That's where miracles come from. Miracles can't come from the ego. They got to come from the source. So they exist, but you got to know where to go to get them.
Is that where people kind of get stuck, is with the ego?
Yes, I think for the most part, people get stuck on things like, there's nothing that gets our attention more than pain. The two most motivating factors in human existence are pain and pleasure. So when you think about ego basically tries to avoid pain by dumping into pleasure, jumping into the pleasure realm. So the ego says, I'm not going to spend a lot of time meditating. I still hurt when I meditate. And I don't want to see my aches and pains, my suffering, my past, my heartache, my life history, etc. So I don't want to deal with all that. So I'm just going to have a drink, maybe 2 drinks, maybe 3 drinks. I'm going to take some drugs. I'm going to become a sexaholic. I'm going to become a shopaholic. I'm going to just spend my time, my energy, my effort trying to feel good and just cancel out the heartache and the shame, the pain and the suffering. And I think that ego has an affinity for doing that. But that only produces what we call spiritually karma. Karma basically produces, it's a law, it's a gravity. of life that says if you keep doing the wrong thing, you're going to keep suffering. You're only suffering because you're creating a karmic debt. Because you're building up problems by misbehaving, so to speak. When you start listening to your inner core, your core self, start operating at a higher consciousness level, dedicating yourself to the right thing to do, I think that's when you have a greater opportunity to fend that off and to change that process, to turn that process around, and to be able to start anew, so to speak, so that your spirit, your soul, your higher mind, your consciousness are leading the way, and your body's benefiting. Your emotions are benefiting as well. That's the key.
Well, we know that you're a very busy person. I'm sure you have patients calling in right now to try to talk with you. And the thing that's interesting, you talked about super consciousness, and a lot of people, probably don't know what that is. Can you share that with us?
Sure. There are different levels of awareness. There's consciousness, which produces 2,000 bits of information per second. That's quite a lot. So the mind is pretty powerful. Again, consciousness produces 2,000 bits of information per second. And there's subconsciousness. Subconsciousness or unconsciousness produces 400 billion bits of information per second. And the higher consciousness, which is super consciousness, is limitless. It can produce infinity in terms of the energetic output that it's capable of. So when we meditate, when we pray, when we work with our awareness, when we develop a stronger connection to our awareness, we develop a stronger capacity to maneuver and operate spiritually and to see things and to understand things and to comprehend things and to develop our awareness in deeper levels. I think that's when we have the ability to produce super consciousness. Super consciousness is it's just what it sounds like. You're conscious, but it's at a super level of awareness. I say that's when you're merging your awareness at the highest level with the universal consciousness that's around you. But let's face it, we don't see things that way because we're not raised to see things that way. But everything around you is the trees, the sky, the ocean, everything in the universe is energetic. It's awareness, it's consciousness. So when you combine your consciousness, when you merge it, when you blend it with the universal consciousness that you're surrounded by, that's when you have super consciousness. There's no limit to what you're capable of, no limits whatsoever. Limitless, remarkable. You got to develop it, you got to cultivate it.
It's something to really work towards, it sounds like, not something you can happen overnight, right?
Well, it depends on the individual. I mean, here's the thing. If you want it to happen overnight, guess what? It can happen. And I think it's a question of how determined you are, how dedicated you are, how positive you're willing to be, how manifest, empowered you are, and how hard you're willing to work at it. And I think if you're really determined, if you're really willing to work at it, and if you're in a position to put some serious energy into the process, I think you can become super conscious overnight in an instant. Now, you always hear the stories about the Buddha. The Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree. What happened? He sat under the Bodhi tree and he woke up from his little nap and he was perfectly fine. He's like super conscious. When he fell asleep, he wasn't super conscious. When he woke up, he was. So that's a great example. I think, that who is more clear about his determination to develop a lifestyle, develop a consciousness that was transcendental, transformational, like none other. And that would be the Buddha. And I just think that all our great spiritual teachers, Jesus, the Buddha, Muhammad, so many spiritual leaders have such a dedication to higher awareness, higher levels of consciousness. And I think that they're here to inspire us, to uplift us, to teach us in their actions, and to become examples for us. To not believe for 1 minute that you're stuck in this massive life, not to believe for 1 minute that you're stuck in these negative heartache zones that are just impenetrable, they're just eternally painful. And that's just not right. I think it's up to our consciousness to develop a strength and awareness and the ability to tune into the energy that we really are at a core, at a soul level, and how we're affixed to the core levels of the universe in beautiful ways. The energy is so much more expansive, so much more powerful than we're aware of, and so much more accessible.
I think there are so many people out there that have been working on themselves and their consciousness for some time, and they're looking for something that brings them to that next level. And that's one of the things I really appreciated about the Way of Miracles, because it spoke a language that was brand new to me. And as I was going through it, there was so much that I learned. It's astounding how all that came together. When you're writing the book, were you channeling it? Did it just happen? How did that come together?
Well, it's kind of funny. I know that there's some really talented psychic people, some intuitive people, some very gifted people who channel. And they channel for a living, for a life. They've channeled for many, many years, and they're good at it. They have relationships with angels and the spirits, and it's pretty incredible to hear them talk about it. But it's something that I don't operate at that level. I can tell you something else. Whenever I sat down to write my books, anytime, especially the last 3 books, book number 5, number 6, number 7, the Whole Health book, the Whole Health Diet, and The Way of Miracles, those 3 books, when I sat down to work on them, I felt something coming through me and possessing me, taking my fingers and doing the typing and spelling out concepts, some specific areas of focus, spiritual lessons rather, would come through me. And I had so much incredible energy come through me that there's no question that I'm being channeled. There's no two ways about it. So I think that those 3 books, the last 3 books, heavily channeled books, something very divine came through me and did some beautiful work. I'd like to take credit for it, but I feel like something much, much more advanced, much more powerful, much more conscious, that actually awakened me and used me as an instrument. I felt like a violin that was being played by an impresario.
Well, you're definitely the right person at the right time. I know a lot of people they're really thirsty for this kind of knowledge. And for those that are kind of new, when we elevate our level of awareness to, access the consciousness, the grand consciousness, that whole mind, what is that experience like? And what do you think people will really expect to find when they're there?
I want to say one thing about that. I want to start off by saying this. There's a lot of people that speak spiritually, and they speak in very high platitudes, and they say beautiful lessons, et cetera, et cetera. They write beautifully, et cetera. But what I do is I've lived for 37 years through the process of miracles. Every day that I come to my work for 37 years, I believed in miracles. I expected miracles. I created the miracles. I worked hard at them. And I convince my patients to work at it the same way, and I inspire them, and I motivate them, and I engage them at a higher level of commitment. And we have deep things that happen here, very deep connections. And the miracles, in many cases, are just words that people can talk about in floral terms. I don't do that. I talk about it because I've been through it, I've lived through it, and I've had tens of thousands of people who are walking this planet right now that by legal or by medical nature aren't even supposed to be around, but they're still here. There's a woman in the film we talked to in her 30s. She was told she and her husband wanted to have a family more than anybody in the world. They just absolutely were so determined to have a family. We want to have kids. We want to have a family. We're dying to have kids. And the doctors told us we couldn't do it. So they went to specialists. All the specialists tried everything imaginable, fertility programs, et cetera. Nothing. Couldn't get anywhere. They said, you got to just go home and just accept the fact that you're never going to have kids. That's all there is to it. There's a reason they have 2 children right now. And the reason is because we worked at it. We created a miracle there. because here's my miracle thought process was. Just to give you an example of how that stuff works. I sat down quietly and I thought to myself, as a problem solver, we got to help. Number one, you got to help these people. Compassion. I'm determined to help people. I can't stand seeing people suffer. I hate to see people suffer. So my compassion moves me to higher levels of functioning and thinking. So I was determined not to let them suffer anymore. So I felt their pain. I responded to it with compassion and action. Part of my action is determination to create the miracle, not expecting it, creating it. I thought about it. I sat quietly with myself and I just kind of pondered over some thoughts. I said, what is it that makes the earth fertile? Think about that. The soil of the earth. The soil of the earth is either fertile or it's not fertile. What makes it fertile? Well, I remember reading as a kid, the River Nile Valley, the Nile River Valley is the most fertile property in the world, the most fertile soil in the world. It's what makes the Nile River Valley so fertile. There's 72 minerals in the Nile River Valley. Minerals have electrolytes, don't they? Electrolytes, the prefix of electrolytes is the spark of life, electro. So minerals have electrolytes. Electrolytes, the prefix is electro. That's where the spark of life is. That's why things grow in the Nile River Valley. That's why there's such fertile farm areas down there and some remarkable plants, vegetation, etc. So I thought to myself, if I start giving these families, these women who've been told that they're infertile, I start giving them mineral complexes. So I identified this product. It's actually a mineral complex that comes from volcanic ash. So it's volcanic mineral supplement. It's not just electrolytes and minerals, which are super important for fertility, but they're actually volcanic, which has an explosive nature, obviously. It has a tremendous amount of energy. So I put these women on volcanic mineral ash, which is a food supplement. You can buy it at the health food store. They took like 2 tablespoons a day, corrected their diet, got off the yeast and sugar and all that junk. And they're all having babies. And this one woman I just told you about who's in the film had one child. She became pregnant in the middle of the filming, unbeknownst to her physicians who were shocked. Then she had another one just recently, 6 months ago. So she's got 2 kids, not 1. And they told her she'd never have any. How'd that work out? So
wow.
There you go.
Wow, that's amazing. And I know that happens all the time with the people that come to see you. I watch your Facebook page. You post, how things are going with different people. It's quite amazing. You don't give their identity, of course, but it's interesting because right now we have a time where people are very anxious, they're stressed out, depressed, and they have this kind of like thought pattern going where it's just a negative, one negative thought after another in these emotions. How does somebody really kind of navigate through that to a point where they're creating miracles?
Well, I think for starters, you have to hold the world in a different place. When I was a kid growing up, all I knew was the world. When you're a vulnerable newborn child, you come into the world and you depend upon the world. You anchor yourself in the world. You ground yourself in the world. You embrace the world. You learn from the world. You learn the world's ways. But after you get a little bit older, you start to question things like that. And lo and behold, the world isn't always right. When you first start looking at things like that, you start learning that there's incompleteness, there's errors, there's fallibilities, there's corruption, there's all kinds of different things in the world. And I think you have to start putting the world in different places. You still love the world, still forgive the world. Again, Jesus had a beautiful line about that. He said, "You're to be in the world, but not of the world." What else do you need to know beyond that? That's perfect. So you're in the world, but not of the world. So I think that's the answer to your question. You're to be in the world, but not of the world. I think to be of the universe, to be of the divine, to be of the light, to be of the forgiveness, to be of the higher level of superconsciousness, to be of a higher level of living, not a world level. I think that's what sets you on a path where there's something possibility for greater things than we're accustomed to. The world doesn't believe in miracles. The world believes in limitation. And I think one of the most important things to become super conscious and to produce miracles is to reach beyond limitation, reach beyond your grasp, and to embrace the notion of limitless opportunity, limitless possibilities. That's the key.
I have never had anyone break that down in the way that you have. And you can tell when you hear it how it resonates with your core and it makes sense. So thank you for taking the time to explain that to us. And you brought up something earlier. You talked about karma, disease. What's the correlation between the two?
Well, there's karma, there's dharma, kinship. There's three different possibilities. And karma is where we, like I said earlier, you kind of willingly or ignorantly continue to do the wrong thing. You're starting trouble in your life because your temper is up, and your sensitivities to people's fallibilities isn't good. You don't forgive them as easily. You hold grudges against them. You battle it out with them, and you know in your heart that it's the wrong thing. You know that it's not the right way to be, but you still persist and insist on being resistant, being argumentative, proving your point right, imposing your will, whatever you want to call it. That creates karma. That doesn't just go away overnight. The more that you accumulate, the longer your misery and your pain is going to be. And so I think karma is about pain from not learning the lesson, from being resistant, and from being out of balance in spirit. But I think that if you think about dharma is a little bit different. Dharma is positive. So in other words, you start loving, forgiving, supporting, acting more selfless, engaging in more of an enduring love in your life, living in the now, not living in the past or the future. The past, basically, you're living in the past, it brings you sadness, resentment, anger. You live in the future, you're dealing pretty much with anxiety, panic. So I think that when you're living in the present tense of now, you have a greater possibility to become clear. And again, the word is moksha, M-O-K-S-H-A. That's the word I was trying to think of, really, moksha. So moksha is liberation. So karma is pain and suffering from recurrent resistance, belligerence, negativity, willpower. Dharma is when you have positive stuff going on. More loving, more positive, more helping, more caring, more compassionate. Taking the time to actually fend off your mortal anger, your frustration, and move into a higher realm of support. That's dharma. The more dharma you produce, the more moksha you generate. Moksha is liberation. So you're no longer stuck between the polarity of dharma and karma. You don't have to worry about going ping-ponging back and forth. You've liberated yourself from that whole process. Your higher level. That's super consciousness. Moksha is super consciousness. That's where you're liberated. You're no longer ping-ponging back and forth from good and bad. That's the key.
Wow. That's just amazing. There's a quote in your book that I just can't forget. I mean, I really like this quote. We are in an infinite field of untapped quantum potential that is comprised of pure consciousness. What do you mean by that?
Well, what is consciousness? Is consciousness something that I have? Some people think so. I think consciousness is what you are. You don't have consciousness. You have consciousness. Consciousness is the essence of the energy within you. When you go to a wake and something is passed over, you're lying in state, so to speak, for observation at the funeral home. You see the body there. The body is intact just as you always remembered it. But what's missing? The essence. The essence isn't there. The essence is the consciousness. It's electromagnetics. It's life force. It's vibrancy. It's that isness is no longer there. The essence is gone. It vacated the body. That tells the truth about life. We're not bodies. We're not personalities. We are the essence. We're the consciousness that fills the body. So consciousness is the essence that fills the body with life force. And there's no limits to that, because it's once again, I said the same thing about the universe. Your essence that fills your body, that brings you life force, is tied to the universe. It's part of the universe. Again, you're not in the universe. You are the universe. Same story. You don't have consciousness. You are consciousness. You don't live in the universe. You are the universe. So I think the objective is to comprehend that you are the essence of conscious energy, and that you're part of a universe that's filled with one massive consciousness energy. So that's you're part of that. So you see yourself as separate. We tend to think of ourselves as like people who are personalities, like I said, egos, separate from the universe. We don't know what the universe is. The universe. The average person thinks the universe like a galaxy, or like space. Planets, stars. That's got to be the universe. I'm just a person. I live in the universe with a bunch of stars and planets. That's totally erroneous. You are consciousness energy. That's the essence of your being. So that's what fills your dead body up and gives it life. That doesn't die. Einstein said energy can either be created nor destroyed, only transmuted. So energy can either be created nor destroyed. Energy is pure essence. It goes on and on forever. So that essence is part of the universal essence. Like I said, you're part of the universe. You are the universe. You're not living in the universe. You are the universe. So I think when you start realizing those concepts at a different level, you start assigning yourself a fixed and embeddedness with the universal way of things. I think you start thinking very differently about life. I think you're more accessible to miracles, because you're becoming the miracle. Your awareness is becoming tuned into the miracle that you are. That's the key.
I find that so empowering, because you look at it and there's so much freedom there. Do you find that sometimes people get a little stuck because that seems so big for them?
I think that's part of the misnomer. I think the answer is yes, but I think it's part of the misnomer. I think that people tend to think of, because the universe is vast, they immediately associate the undertaking of becoming more aligned with it as a big thing. The universe is vast. It's bigger than me. I'm just a little old me. I can't get into that. That stuff's too complicated. It's too big, too vast, too out of control for me. But again, the point is that that's an illusion. You have nowhere to go, nothing to do except realize what you are and tap into your truth. The truth is you are the universe. Like I said, you don't have anywhere to go. You don't have anything to contemplate. There's nothing bigger than you. You are it. So if the universe is too big, then so are you, because you're part of it. You are the universe. So I think it goes back to our old programmed thought process, our own thinking. Our thinking tends to be distorted because we're not raised with super consciousness as a priority. Our system of living years ago said the way we want to practice our life experience and train young people to come to life and come to the maturity that they come to. Make sure they have intelligence, they get a good job. Make sure they have intelligence, they can keep their family well, healthy, supplied with all the material needs that they would have, get them to college, all that stuff. That's how we emphasize. That's what our culture is all about. It's material culture. I think we've learned from the spiritual world, from the East, in the Far East and the East, that there's also cultures that emphasize spirit, soul, source, essence, energy, like we said. And we're starting to get a taste of that in the West. And I think that there's a blending right now. That most people in America are becoming more familiar with the fact that they've been missing out on something. They've been working so hard just to survive that they forgot how to work less to prosper. So the objective is to tap in consciously to what you are, like I said earlier, to who you are, to what you are. And realize that by doing that, there's nothing else to do. Everything comes to you. You're not doing more, you're doing less. Because you are more. So it's kind of like with one system, the way we're raised in this culture, we're raised to be more and to do less. I think the objective is to be more and to do less. I think we are more. So in this culture, we say you want to do less. Do more and be less. Spiritually, we want to turn that around, be more and do less. And I think that it's not about doing; it's about being. And I think that our culture is all about being at a do level. So our beingness is tied into our doing. We're human doings, we're not human beings. So I think the secret is to become more of a human being, a being that is in the process of discovering itself and in imbuing the universe with what it wishes. The universe, what the universe wants more than anything? The universe wants us to realize what we are, because that actually makes the universe shine a little brighter every day.
I just am so impressed with that, because it really does shift perspectives when we talk about being. And a lot of times people just don't realize that. But I think with the pandemic, that kind of changed a lot of things. It changed a lot of perspectives for people.
It did. I think the pandemic there's a lot of sides to it. So many different components to it. There's a lot of people that manipulated things, a lot of people that politically manipulated, medically manipulated. I think there's so many different components, so many different aspects to it. But one thing's for sure, we're all inclined to go deeper and to ascend higher. I think whenever there's pain, suffering, and confusion at any level for any reason, we become more motivated to go deeper within ourselves and to ascend higher within the universe. I think that this pandemic is exactly what we needed to grow spiritually. And I think the Way of Miracles is exactly what message the world needed at this time that it's getting it. I think it's perfectly timed. And that's why I can't wait to share this thought process with the entire world. Timing is beautiful.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's the book we all need right now, to move beyond where it is that we are. Because I know a lot of people are just striving for that. One of the things you talk about is intention. So how do our intentions play in all this?
There's a part of the brain called the anterior cingulate cortex. The anterior cingulate cortex, an amazing part of the brain. It's part of the brain that actually reflects the mind. Not all parts of the brain reflect the mind. The anterior cingulate cortex does. So they've proven. They did a study at Harvard. They had a bunch of people hooked up to electrodes, 250 electrodes, and they had these piano impresarios play the piano. The great players, they were amazing, skilled musicians playing the piano, playing Bach and Beethoven and all that. And they recorded the sections of the brain that lit up. And they brought a bunch of duffers in, people who didn't know anything about the piano at all. They had them just make believe that they just tinkered with the keys of the piano. And they imagined that they were playing the music that they just heard the impresarios play. They wired their brains. There was no difference in the brains. The anterior cingulate cortex was lit up in both sets of brains. The entire neurological system in the brains were totally lit up the same way. So we've learned that whether something is happening or whether you're imagining that it's happening in your mind, you get the same neurological excitation in the brain. So what I learned from that is, you mentioned the word expect, and you mentioned the concept of expectancy, the concept of manifest, intention. I think that tells us that when we have a high intention to do something, we're wired for it. We're absolutely wired for it. So just by imagining it, you're creating it by imagining it. So my theory is reality begins with thought. Reality begins with the intention to generate thought. So if I have an intention to generate a certain thought process and it's engaging my anterior cingulate cortex, my neurons in the brain, and my mind and my spirit are all kind of converged. It's a holistic engagement, a holistic process. And actually that's what begins producing we often hear that thoughts are things. Thoughts are things. So that the intention that we generate in our thoughts go through this process of actualization through the brain, through the mind. And I think that we end up creating through the process of our thoughts. The intention starts the process. And then I think expectancy seals the deal. So if I start with intention, then I move into expectancy. Like I said a little while ago, if you have strong faith in yourself and in the process of making miracles, you'll make miracles, trust me. If you don't have faith, you're not going to make any miracles. Don't waste your time. If you have faith, if you have strong presence of intention, if you're determined, there's nothing to stop you. Nothing. You'll make your miracles, trust me.
What is one thing that you want our listeners to really know about the Way of Miracles?
That it's about them. It's about them. It's not about me, not about anybody else. It's not about any other teachers or any leaders, not about any scientists, not about your family doctor. It's not about the surgeon down the street. It's not about any of those people. It's about you. It's about you. It's not even about your family. It's about you. It's about you and you alone. Each one of us has to own this awareness that we're not who we think we are. We're much more higher evolved than we think we are. Our potential is much more limitless than we think it is. Our capacity to make miracles is for real. Our capacity to make remarkable impressions in the universe, in the world. Our capacity to make remarkable events take place through our intention is very real. Is why we're here. It's expected. It's designed that way. And that's nature. That's natural. That was designed to be the case. It's not extra. It's just the deal. That's what we came for. So I want everybody to know that this is about them. This is about tapping into their source, tapping into their deeper self, about evolving their transformative consciousness, about working with their awareness, about making the effort to grow spiritually and to grow in their empowerment process, and to believe in miracles, and then ultimately to create them. They have the power to do that. That's why they're here. And I just think it's really important for everybody to have faith in their ability to make miracles.
It's almost like the Way of Miracles is the guidebook we needed when we first landed here.
I think you're right. I think it's a full circle book. I mean, when you're a healer, like I've been for the past 37 years and 60,000 patients, you have a lot of time to think, to contemplate, to muse over what you need to do to help people. You have a lot of time to think about what's the best medicine to use, what's the best way to help this person, that person. If I really care and I really want to help them and I hate to see them suffer, I get really motivated to make a difference. What is the difference maker? What's the most important thing that I could recommend to help this person? You dig and dig and you think those thoughts every day, constantly. And I kept coming to the conclusion over the past 37 years that this isn't about migraine headaches. It's not about inflammation. It's not about sugar in the diet. I mean, it is, but it isn't. It's really about who we are. It's really about, there's a section in the book, in my 5th book, Whole Health, called Identify Your I. Identify your I. The average person writes or uses the word or speaks the word I 500 times a day, but they don't know who that is. Who is I? You use the word all day long. I. Who is the I? Are you a personality or are you a soul? You identify with your core. You tap into the real source of what you are. Maybe you started living through yourself that way and becoming that more of that, more than the other thing you were, the personality, the ego. It's kind of like there's a great line in the scriptures. It says something like, I am that I am. I am that I am. I said the emphasis isn't on the I am. The emphasis on that. I am that I am. So there's a lot of different I ams we are. I'm an ego I am. I'm a personality I am. I'm different persons, different aspects to my I am. But the term I am that. I'm that one. That's one I am. That's a way of identifying with the real you. You're shattering the myth of self. You're starting all over again conceptually, tapping into this magnificent creature that you are, this magnificent being that you are, which has no limits. You are an amazing creature, an amazing being. You have no limits to yourself. Embrace your limitlessness. Love your beautiful self. and continue to unfold and work with it in totality. That's what I'd say.
Well, Dr. Mincolla, it has been such an honor to spend this time with you. Where can our listeners go to learn more about the work you do, your new book, the film? I understand you have some events coming up. Where can they go to connect with you?
I got a website. It's markmincolla.com. Markmincolla.com. MINCOLLA, 2 L's. And the film is coming out at the end of this month. The film is entitled the same thing, The Way of Miracles. So the book and the film will both be out the third week in June.
Well, Dr. Mincolla, thank you so much for being on the show with us here today.
Marianne, you did such a beautiful job. I appreciate your wonderful interview.
Well, thank you, Dr. Mincolla. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book and film, The Way of Miracles. Before we go, just a reminder, you've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.